Hello, Facebook. Welcome to my temple room and my Witch on Fireside chat for this Friday night. This is the second of 13 video chats I plan to live stream through this page through the month of April as a way to stay connected and be present with my community at a safe distance during the COVID-19 pandemic where we're all sheltering in place. As you know, my store is currently closed, and so my ability to just talk to people and answer questions in the store. Hey, Kayla. My ability to just answer questions in the store casually when people come in, of course, is curtailed at the moment. And that's most of our job there at the Sojourner, is just being present and available to answer any question that comes up for our shoppers. The metaphysical store is definitely more than just shopping. It is a temple in any community where it's operating. And the people who serve there are like, whether they have taken those vows or not intentionally, they serve much like clergy in any other religion where, you know, there's a church door open and you can go in if you have questions and ask whatever priest or priestess is on duty. But in neo-paganism, we don't have that so much. So the metaphysical store tends to operate in that way for folks. So as a way to continue that service and hopefully generate a little income via donation, whatever you can contribute, if you think you've gained something through watching any of these videos that was useful to you and you can contribute a bit to the shop. Our PayPal is orders@thesojo.com, and that's included in the event description and on the banner, but it's been very helpful so far. Thank you to everyone who helped us by contributing during the first video for going over to our Teespring, the Sojourner Tees link and purchasing a sweatshirt or a t-shirt or a mug or a shopping tote. That was also very helpful. So for these fireside chats, I have decided to answer any of your questions. And if you have something you'd like to ask, you can pop into the comments and ask me there. You can also, any other time, hey Stacy, any other time you can just send me an email or at the orders@thesojo.com, or you can send me a private message through Facebook, however, and I'll put that in my cauldron of questions, which I have been including, and I'll just pick some questions at random and see if I can answer it for you. In the meantime, I'm going to try to have something of a demonstration for each of these videos because so many of the original commenters said that they would like just tips and tricks or how do I get started in my practice because I'm new to this. And I've been thinking about that a lot since I first, pitched the idea. And I realized that when you've been doing these sorts of mystical, magical, witchy things for a long time, you begin to take for granted some of the things that are just everyday for you. I remember distinctly a priestess who was very important to me, named Lady Greenflame, once reminding me that everyone has to experience something as simple as lighting a smudge bundle the first time. Everyone comes to that the first time, and it's a special experience, and we can't forget how important the simple things are, and sharing that with our newcomers to the craft or to just a spiritual path. Hi Rob, hi Jen. I'm very happy to see people popping in. Thank you. It really helps me feel not quite so isolated and alone here during all of this. Even though I work from home most of the time, lately I think the knowing I can't go out and hug all your necks at the store has really felt particularly isolating. So, hi Allison. So what I'm going to demonstrate today in the theme of our Witch on Fire and Fireside chats. Last time I demonstrated the charging a candle and lighting our fire candle. I've already done that tonight. I'm going to take it one more to inviting elemental energies of fire, which I know I could use. I really could use a lot of motivation and some extra heat to burn off all of this emotional blarg that's laying over everything right now. If this is a bad time to be an empath. Woo. Such a sea of concern and anxiety, which impacts me as much as it does anyone else. And I too have been fighting a sense of, just a crushing anxiety, which then collapses into a depression, and everything else just sort of slips away in that. I've been telling people I feel lately like my brains are scrambled eggs with hot sauce. Mostly the scrambled eggs is because I just can't think anymore, and then the hot sauce is what I am thinking I'm outraged about, and then smothered in sawmill gravy. It's just a thick swamp of unhealthy emotional yuck drowning everything else out lately. So as a means to help myself, these videos give me a reason to not just be clean, but to, hey Lisa, not just be clean, but to actually put a little buff and shine on the appearance, and gives me a reason to put on some nice clothes. And I would recommend that to you too if you're trying to figure out how to keep your spirits up during all of this. There's no reason you can't, when you take your shower, put on some makeup and your favorite perfume, or I don't know, moisturize the beard and put on a nice shirt, something like that, just because you want to. That's one of those self-care things. So don't forget that stuff. That's just the easy stuff. I consider that very root chakra and sacral chakra pampering stuff. So I thank you for the opportunity that these videos give me just to have a reason to do all that too. Okay, so my next thing I'm going to demonstrate is using loose incense. This is the incense that I have made. I sell it through my shop. Not that that's possible right now to buy it, so that's not what I'm pitching. But I do make these to use in my own practice and in my teaching. This is my elemental fire blend. And people are always asking us at the store about using loose incense powders. They're so easy to make once you understand, what you're about. And I can give that demo another night, how to make them. But anyway, once they're made, they're a loose powder. There's no binding agents nor burning agents in them, which make them a little bit healthier to burn and to make, a little less fussy to make. And you really just need any kind of loose powder. My blends are usually a 1-to-1-to-1 ratio between, hey Brandon, hey Kimberly. So my blends are a 1-to-1-to-1 wood powder to resin, tree resin powder, to other plant materials like herbs and roots and plant material. So in this case, my blend is things that coordinate and correspond to the planetary energies of Mars and the Sun, obviously, for fire. So it's a very masculine blend also. And I need that masculine oomph, get up and go, courage, bravery, inspiration, get my internal fires burning. So I've been using a fair amount of this. And I really could use it tonight too because I'm a little nervous. Hey, Jason. Ah, yes. He who dubbed me Story Morrison. I have to tell the story for you. Anyway, so this one is oak wood and cinnamon. Remember, cinnamon is a bark powder, so I count that as a wood. Then dragon's blood resin to really kick it up a notch, as Emerald Lagasse would say. Then I've got accents of ginger root, tangerine peel, clove, and bay leaves, all for my magical fire blend. And the next demo, because this is the thing that a lot of our new customers ask, how do we go about lighting a incense powder? Well, for one, you're going to need charcoal. This is a charcoal tab from the company Swift Light. This is the package. They come in rolls of 10. I think we sell ours for $3, $3.50, something like that. They've got the burning agent in them. You do need a pair of tongs or something along those lines. And you need a cute wee spoon. This spoon happens to have been a gift to me by someone I know was watching named Rob. Thanks, Rob. I'm going to use your spoon. So, once you have your charcoal you just light it. I think it's easier to apply the flame to the edge, and then you'll begin to see it pop. There's that burning agent in it. Let's see if I can get this where you can see. See, it's popping? That's going to move across the front, the top of the charcoal. You can set it on down. Sometimes, especially if they're a little bit old, you may have to apply the fire a few times. This seems to be moving across the charcoal just fine. It's going to be a little bit like a fireworks show. It just crosses the charcoal. Yep, it's doing its thing. I like to wait until the line of sparks has passed all the way across. I admit I do not like the smell of this part because there's the burning agent in there doing its thing. But once it crosses all the way, we can then add the incense. Ooh. So, hey Martha. Like I said, I've got a cauldron full of questions here, but if anyone would like to just, ask me something in the comments, or if you know me, and half the people on here already, I know I've spent a lot of time chatting around fires and classrooms and ritual spaces with. So if there's something you'd like me to kick in by way of a story or some experience we've had together, you're welcome to spark my memory and my conversation there. All right, so the sparks have moved their way across the charcoal, which means that you can then add a little bit of your incense powder. So here we go. Takes just a little bit. If you put too much, or if you even have too big a spoon, it'll end up just falling off the charcoal. So here's your story. Here's a story for you I just remembered. Okay. At the store, we sell a lot of this stuff, and it's just magic 101 to have the ability to burn charcoal. Now you're going to need something heat safe. Now I've used this little 3-legged cast iron cauldron that actually was donated to the store by somebody. That's kind of a funny story. Quite often people will just show up with a little box full of used witchy things, and say, hey, I was just dabbling and I did something and it really scared me and I don't want to do any of this stuff anymore. Will you just take all this stuff? And we're like, oh, sure. And then we'll rehome it or use it or sell it or whatever. This happened to be in a box one time. Somebody just said, I don't want to do witchcraft anymore. And they just handed me a box. This fantastic cauldron was in there. Then I filled it with sand. This sand was just regular old Lowe's grade, landscaping sand, or sand you might put in your kid's sandbox. But it is so full now of the ashes of old incense that is burned, and the remains of charcoal, because you don't ever really have to clean it out. You just have to stir it in afterwards, and it's ready to go. Ah, yeah. I love the smell of my fire incense with the cinnamon and the clove and the oak. It smells like that cereal cinnamon toast crunch. Or when I was a kid, my mother would make wheat toast with butter and cinnamon and sugar. Well, so welcome, powers of fire. Hi, Brittany. Welcome to the Fireside Chats. The fires are burning. So that's the easy part of burning charcoal. I told you the story about the cauldron and the sand because I have had a customer in the past get very angry with me because they had come in and asked me about the, how to burn the loose incense powders or the resins or something we were selling. And so I said, well, you'll need the charcoal. These are used in hookah pipes, And so I said, well, you light the charcoal and then, you just sprinkle the incense on top. She came in later because she was very mad at me because she had burned a hole or a burn spot in her wooden coffee table. And she was very mad that I had not mentioned that when she put down the burning charcoal, she had to put it in something. I didn't tell her that part. So you know how they say that when there's a warning label on something and you think that's just ridiculous, and we all go, well, that's because somebody did it somewhere and now they have to be warned not to do that thing. So now I make sure to tell everyone, when you light your charcoal, you have to put it in a heat-safe dish or on something that won't burn and will actually insulate the heat, because that is a very hot charcoal tab. Once it started popping, you've got to not touch that again unless you have something safe like the little charcoal tongs. That's why it's also important to have your wee spoon. And these wee spoons are, I collect these, as do many of my friends, and we trade them as little gifts because you can never have enough. They often are in antique stores. I'm not sure what they were originally. Some fancy shishi la-di-da dinner set thing. I get a lot of that stuff in antique stores for magical practice. But anyway, as long as you've got a little spoon, once the smoke stops, and it's still going well right now. I've got some whole cloves up here on top. Still going. They smell delicious. This is what I mean by bathing in smoke. This is my beautiful crow wing. I got it from my friend Matthew Venus when I traveled up to Temple Fest, the Temple of Witchcraft Lammas festival in 2015. He has a fabulous store of goodies called Spiritus Arcanum, and a lot of my favorite things come from him. His stuff is all sustainably and legally sourced also. Oh, Stacy. Yep, she also mentions that if you're not careful about the bowl itself, even if you're smart enough to put it in a bowl, most people are, if that heat will transfer down through the bowl, which is why the little feet on a witch's cauldron are so important. Or often charcoal burners that come from India, where they do a lot of this sort of burning, will have a little raised area or a little screen, a mesh screen that the charcoal sits on, so it's raised above. To answer your question, Sigrid, yes, I do sell them at my store, which of course is closed right now. And I think I need to even restock, because I do make it myself and I package it myself and I include all the information. I have a line that goes right along with the new book I'm writing. So when I actually can shift my attention properly to getting that second set of manuscript corrections all finished, which I'm very behind on. Thank you, pandemic, for distracting me. Once I get that all done, the recipes and the instructions for all of them that I include in my regular practice, especially the elemental stuff and my work with divinity, I will have all those recipes and instructions in the book, but I'll also have them available for sale, probably like in a little subscription box kind of thing that could be ordered by the time that would be needed. But, I like to encourage folks to make their own. Thank you all for being interested in the book. I know I've been very slow about it, and I apologize. Life just tends to happen, and I've got about 3 full-time jobs, it feels like, a lot of the time. And so even now, with all this extra time where I could be sitting around and concentrating, I tend to be distracted by trying to do things like this and make an alternate income stream. Anyway. All right, I'm going to add a little bit more incense. See, it started to slow a bit. I just kick off the ash. And sometimes you just want to reveal a little bit of the hot red coal in there. And then just add a little bit more. When you're doing incense work like this, the thing to remember, of course, is that when you make an incense of this type, you've already empowered it to the work that you're looking for. It is a partnership with the plant materials within it. It is not just a commodity. It is not just an object, like an enslaved object, like do my bidding, incense. It's more of a partnership with the plant materials that are in there, understanding that they are living consciousnesses and that we are partnering with them. So when I make it, I seek that partnership and I awaken each to the need of the blend. In this case, ignite passion and will. What is my will in this? And then give me the firepower I need to actually accomplish my will in the work that I'm doing. In this case, I'm bringing a little courage because these sorts of things are nerve-wracking to me. And so I'm calling a little courage into this thing also. Hey, Dontrell. So, incense work. Once it's burning, you can just set it to do its thing and to fill the temple once you've invited it in. This is actually calling powers of air and fire together. Incense to me is a consecration tool of air. And so I'm also inspiring the thought, the wisdom, the communication skills that we need to accomplish whatever we're doing in magic. And to me, it's so based in communication. I'm communicating with the cosmos, and I'm speaking those words of power. Oh, I got a question from Noah. What's your go-to tarot card layout for readings? This is me asking as a relative amateur. I can't see the rest of the comments, so I can just answer from there. My go-to is the reading that I demonstrated in the first video. I admit that it is one that I did develop on my own, and it is integral to the book. So to answer some of the private messages that I got about that, there isn't anything written currently out, like on my blog, for example, which gives the full details of that reading and why, because honestly, it's taking the whole first manuscript of my book to really unpack that. The reading just being a small part of the overall elemental mysteries that go into the positions of that reading. And I do call it the Jewel of Power. But other than that, I love a good old traditional 10-card Celtic cross. Old school. I use that more than anything. I just consider anything where there's a question of a crossroads in your life, or what do I do, or here's this thing I don't quite understand what's going on. It really does just drop that GPS pin like on the map of your life. You are here. And then it gives a good idea of where your spiritual GPS, or shall we call it your weird, that's the Anglo-Saxon word for your fate, where your spiritual journey was headed. And then, like the Chinese saying, if you don't change direction, you'll arrive where you're headed. Now, anytime you do any sort of divination and you get information like that, you've already changed the future. Now you know. Anything you do now would be to slightly alter that. So that's when I feel like you can say, all right, well, do I choose to go to that destination or not? And I always, after a 10 card, always draw a next instruction card, just like I do in anything. So like my Jewel of Power has that 6th card, which is the now what do I do, and I reveal it last. If I'm doing a Celtic cross, what I typically do is I take the rest of the deck and I just smear it out sideways, and then I myself or whoever I'm reading for, I ask them to just see which card calls to them and pull one more card. And then that is the next direction. So the question that it answers is, all right, now what do I do about it? That's what that next card is. And so whatever that message, that's the next thing to do. And beyond that, you have free will. You have a choice in your life. So for example, let's say we're doing a spread. I've had so many clients come in and there's a thing going on. Well, what do I do? And I pull a card, especially female clients. And the card is, all the cards are clearly showing that family is on the horizon. And there are cards that are specifically about being physically pregnant. In my deck, it's like the Princess of Discs, for example. And so if I'm seeing this thing going, well, that's what's on the horizon for you, then I ask them, do you want to be a mother? If the answer is no, attend to that. And you have a choice in that situation. I have known people to go, I choose not to do that. I don't want that. And so the next instruction usually ends up being, well, then take care of it. Get down to the nitty-gritty business and put up some barrier to that. And folks go and, maybe have a procedure or something. But anyway, the choice is always yours. And the GPS doesn't tell you some locked-in concrete future. It gives you the choice of choosing where you go from there. I hope that was helpful. It's so nice to see all your names popping up. A little bit of red wine from ye old granny's chalice. I'm going to move the things that are on fire back to my altar. This is my altar back here. And then we'll begin. We'll keep going. Okay. All right. All right, Noah, so that answered your question. Oh, thank you. You're very sweet. All right, another thing I wanted to demonstrate and just give you guys as an idea, because someone had asked me in a private message about how, about my personal practice and my great work and what I go about doing that. And I can't remember the exact specifics of the question. I think it was more about how I adapt that to where I live or my environment. You'll be glad to know that in this book that I'm struggling to write and those after it, it's basically describing the great work and how I go about doing that. In each, it's actually a 3-book arc that I've pitched, and I've actually got contracts for the first 2, which I really owe them these manuscripts. But anyway, the idea being that the great work goes on every year, and it happens within cycles of the sun, which we call the Sabbats, the Great Wheel, and then there's the cycles of the moon, which are monthly, and they layer up in within the wheel of the year. And then there's the elemental mysteries that I call the Jewel of Power. Others have called the Witch's Pyramid of Power. It's also been called the Sphinx of the Magus, I believe is what it was called, by Eliphaz Levi. But to me, those were only half the mysteries. I've been really working this theology for a bunch of years as part of my great work. And I've got some ideas that I've been implementing for my own practice and in my own classroom with my coven. And I've been very grateful to my coven for putting a lot of these ideas into practice as a group and then honing them together as a group. So I really credit them, all my coven members, for being, well, really great sports, but also helping me to see what works and what doesn't work, and collaboratively making it better year after year. So of the elemental mysteries, that's what I'm writing about first, because that's the overlay which works within every other thing. So forthcoming. But I did want to speak about how I do my personal great work intention, and some of my little crafty tricks, because everyone's going on about being crafty while they're home. And I've blogged about this before at Christmas. Well, Yule, pardon me. So what I'd like to do every year before our Imbolc ceremony is, first of all, I do all the divination and things to figure out what's the intention statement for the great work of magic that I'm going to be working on all year long. It's a personal great work. The coven comes up with its own. That's a different one. So my personal great work, and I learned this technique of creating a candle from a priestess and teacher witch that I adore named Diana Rice. She was the priestess of a group at a Saxapahaw called the Lunatic Fringe for, I think, 18 years. They disbanded one Sabbath after I joined them the first time. It's just bad luck. Anyway, she continued to be a great mentor to me. And other things she taught me was their tradition of what they call tarting up a candle. So this is a 7-day candle. Now, I got the glass from one of those cheap, I think I got it at the Dollar Tree candles at one point when we just needed a whole lot of white candles. And then once that wax was gone, I cleaned it out. And then I used beeswax. The beeswax that I use well, hold on, I can't find one. Oh, here we go. Okay. The beauty of being in my witchcraft room is all my things are near at hand. Okay. This is a beeswax pillar candle that we sell at our store. Very healthy for the environment, great for the bees. Once you have something like this, you can then add it to glass jars like this. We also sell them just already in the glass jars too, if you want to get one fresh and start that way. But then you've got the glass left over, and what do you do then? So anyway, like I do with all my candles, I include some sand at the bottom. I'm using an herb blend to dress the candle, I add a little bit to the bottom. I carve the sides of the candle, and I embed in the engravings of the candle the herb blend to go with my work. And then I slip it into the glass, and then I add a little bit more on top along with some stone chips. I love adding stone chips or stone granules. You can even get sand. And in my store we sell the sand of a number of stone varieties, which of course is a byproduct of shaping stones into shapes. You know, if like you've bought a sphere or something like that, there's the leftover grit of those stones that then can be gathered up and sold in its own package and used in magic. I add stone chips or granules in all of my incense powders, and I put a little bit of the chips in oil bottles if I'm making an oil blend. I add them to all my candles. It doesn't burn, but it continues to charge and bring in that ally from the realm of stone, in addition to plant, when you've been creating a candle. So here's the fun part. When I do my great work intention, when I figure out what it's going to be, I keep a journal that I call my book of mirrors. This is different than a book of shadows. Your book of shadows includes things that like spells and recipes, rituals themselves, bits of lore. It's like your textbook that you could pass on to someone else and teach them the craft. It's not necessarily your personal thoughts about what happened on Tuesday when the moon was void of course and Mercury was retrograde and you've got bad cramps. You don't need to be putting that in your book of shadows. You need a book of mirrors. So I like to transform cheap composition notebooks that are a couple of bucks each. That way I don't feel bad about burning pages. I don't feel bad about going stream of consciousness or suddenly want to draw a picture and then maybe it's not my favorite thing and whatever. I keep stacks and stacks of these, and I like to reuse the images from calendars, especially witchy calendars. The one that I've been using a lot lately is a calendar called Shadowscapes. There's a Shadowscapes Tarot, and the artist, and I'm going to say her name wrong, but it is Stephanie Puy-Law, I believe is how you say her name. And like I said, she illustrated the Shadowscapes Tarot, and there's a calendar put out with her artistry every year, as far as I know, through Llewellyn. So I've always got some around, and her art is gorgeous. So I saw this image, and to me this said Queen of Discs or Queen of Pentacles. So that's the card I kept drawing in all my divinations of what I should be doing for my personal great work this year, because I always use tarot. Now the tarot I use is actually the Thoth deck, and this is the image for the Queen of Discs. And I loved that idea. I'm like, yes, I would like to work that in my life this year. Mostly because it's very earthy and elemental to me, and that's what I needed to finish. I needed to make a concrete manuscript, turned in, it's done, give it to my editor. So, yes, we have some users with Shadowscape Tarot. It's beautiful artwork, beautiful. I know several people who do all their tarot with Shadowscapes. It's gorgeous. Anyway, so I take the old calendar image, and I even wrap it around the edge. It's kind of hard to see. Wrap it around the edge of the composition notebook. I always make a spreadsheet of when all the moons are happening. I provide this on my blog the last 2 years anyway. Print me out a copy so I've got it there. I write the divinations that I've been getting, and then I write my intention statement that I read at my at Imolk while I'm lighting my candle. Once I've got the image, I can then I happen to have a color laser copier because I own a business. If you take that paper, and just like I've made it specific to me, my elemental witchcraft, Jewel of Power is what I'm working this year. My name, it's my book of mirrors, and I'm working the Queen of Discs. I took that picture, put it on my color copier, and printed it on transparency paper. Just transparency paper like they used to use in elementary school if you happen to be of a certain age and there was a overhead projector for the old folks in the room. So anyway, once it's printed on transparency, you can then just wrap it around your candle. Now I used packing tape, but that's problematic. You can see it kind of getting bubbly there maybe. But you can also use Mod Podge glue. You know, that kind of glue where you just blob it everywhere and then it dries clear. Anyway, I like to just keep it on my candle as well as my book of mirrors. It reminds me every time what my goal is. And then whenever I'm working on what I'm supposed to be doing that year, whether it's, well, for me now, it'd be either taking care of my physical health, which is a Queen of Discs thing to do, or I'm working on the book manuscript, I light my candle and I call to be present all of those allies that I originally invoked for the work. Now, as it's been burning for a bit, we'll see if you guys can see down in there. Nah, you can't. There are stone chips and other bits of magical stuff in the that have been revealed since the wax started to melt again, and they'll just ride down the candle all the way to the bottom, and then I can clean out the glass. And the way I clean wax out of old glass candles is, I don't know, it's just my way, but I'll boil a tea kettle full of water. I'll sit all the old glass out in the grass out in my backyard, and then I'll just pour the hot tea kettle all over everything. Now, you got to wear mitts or something because that's going to be hot, boiling. But all the waxy bits will just float to the surface, and then I just knock them over, and I pour the water and the boiling water and the waxy bits in the grass, and just let it be out there, let it do its thing. And then I can just, wash the hot glass with soap and water and wipe it down with a paper towel to try to get the rest of it so it doesn't go down into my drains, because you definitely don't want hot wax in your drain. That's going to cause you to call the plumber, and they're going to think you're an idiot. Don't ask me how I know. It wasn't me that poured the wax down the sink, but it happened at the store one time. And let's just say the acts of all the gods it took to get that wax out of the drain. Silly. Anyway, there's lots of good comments going across. I can see everybody's pitching in, and I love it. Like Stacy said, even if you don't have transparency paper, just any old paper will do, and it will shine through it. Here's the fun part. If you do use a opaque paper, which I have done many times, you can use the back side of it to write your intention. And this can be for any magic. You write out your full intention statement. Now, mind you, that can be done any number of ways. But what I like to do, because I'm a writer and I'm loquacious, Story Morrison has many words to share, I begin my process by free writing what it is that I want. It's like a stream of consciousness writing, and maybe it's a couple paragraphs worth. And then I boil that down to particular sentences. What's really the heart of the matter? From there, once I get to one paragraph, which has a particular outline in how I go about it, beginning with who I'm addressing, what energies I'm calling to the work, what I want to have very specifically, and then I call it my caveat statements. I always put something at the end that helps the cosmos and all my guides know that what I'm trying to do is work for my highest good, and I don't always know what my highest good is. So whatever I want to be the result of this, I want it to be for my highest good, and I don't want to hurt anybody. That's my personal way. So I'll say, may this work be for the highest good of all involved, harming none. So mote it be. So that's my paragraph. I'll write that on the back of the paper. So that one side is the art that everyone in the house can see. And it's like a vision board, if you will. It can be whatever you want to be, graphically, sigils, whatever. But you don't want it to necessarily be where, I don't know, the plumber is in the house helping with the plumbing problem from the witchcraft gone awry. And you don't need them walking by and reading your candle if it happens to be sitting out in your altar. So on the outside, it just looks like art and it means something to you. That'd be a great place to put a sigil, is you reduce the paragraph down to something graphical like sigils. And that removes you away from it a little bit more, but you can have the whole paragraph on the inside. So then as the wax burns, you kind of see an imprint of it through the paper, but you also can sort of read it through. So if you're doing your meditation on what you're continuing to work on throughout the year, now mind you, I'll light this candle every working every full moon, dark moon, if I'm doing something then. I burn it all year long, and I'll add more wax to it as I go if I need to. But anyway, you can sort of see the words as they go down as you're meditating with your candle. And plus, once you've got all the little bits and bobs in there, the little stone chips and the little bits of herb or whatever it is that you're using in your magic, and it needs to be the tiniest little bit or it might catch fire. Be careful of that. Don't overload a candle. You're kind of watching that, and then it takes on its own divination, you know? You see how it's moving. So anyway, tips and tricks. I love to tart up a candle, and I thank Diana Rice for that bit of information. So, Book of Mirrors. I also will keep separate journals for all my book notes. I'm a real Hermione when it comes to these things. And I'm a researcher, plus I'm writing books, right? So some of the ones from last year, you know, I just pick out the pictures. There's my Elemental Magic one. It took me 5 just for the research for Lunar Magic, and or Lunar Witchcraft, and I haven't even hardly got that one started yet. So I just like to keep these composition notebooks around. Sometimes I get the ones with the graph paper in them. It makes me feel good about being able to draw pictures and not feel like the lines are holding me back. Hey, Chris. Okay, so journals and the Book of Mirrors and candles and incense. Oh my. And it's been 41 minutes me talking. Thank you, everyone, for coming to my fireside chat and contributing and asking me questions. We'll see if there's one more thing in this cauldron I'm going to draw from something that somebody may have sent me. My wee cauldron. Oh, no, that one's too complicated. I'll do that one another day. It's a good one, though. What am I doing to help stay healthy in COVID-19? So here's my last little thing. I made an herbal tea blend that I sell through my shop, but I think we're out. So I don't even like I said, this is not me trying to pitch you something because we're closed. But if you can get to some herbs in your own town, that's really why I don't have an online selling thing. I don't really have a website where I'm trying to sell you things to ship to you with a giant carbon footprint where I might be taking business away from your local metaphysical store. Now, I know there are some places in the world, I know, where there isn't one and you need to buy your stuff somewhere. I get that. I'm not making anybody feel bad about having to order something online. Please, by all means. But we didn't develop that for a number of reasons, but primary among them is I really want there to be a metaphysical store, brick and mortar, open in every city, at least one in every county in the world. Wouldn't that be great? Where you could go in and actually meet real people who practice this form of spirituality, where you can ask them questions. Bookstores, metaphysical stores, herb shops, they're way more than just retailers. They are our temples. And so I encourage you to buy local if you can. So here's the answer to the question. I made a cough tamer tea. I got this recipe from our, just some notes in the back. There's a recipe box. This was put together by our manager, Courtney. So some of her suggestions for things that can be good for respiratory illnesses. Now, remember, you've got to always check with your physician. Always look to see if something that you're taking from the plant world is compatible with any prescriptions, drugs that you are on, and your physical conditions. But here are some things that are known to help to break up mucus, that are expectorants, that also can help keep the lungs from spasming too much. And how when you cough so much, you're just coughing for no reason. So here's some of the things. And I've been drinking this tonight. And my new mug that my son made me, he was so sweet. He put my first rule of witchcraft on it. Don't burn the witch, please, in the etching. So my hot tea helps to soothe the sore throat, expectorant, and soothes the chest, the lungs, is slippery elm bark, mullein leaf, marshmallow root, licorice root, peppermint leaf, which especially makes it delicious, and cramp bark. Okay, thank you everyone for your comments. It's 9:45 and I'm trying not to go over 45 minutes. This has been brilliant. Thank you very much. If you found something of value here and you have a few bucks and you can, and you'd like to contribute to the Sojourner, this is going to pay our payroll and our basic expenses. We don't know how long we'll be closed. It may be for the whole month of April. So if you can, I'm accepting PayPal contributions. If you're local, I can put that as on your store account. If you're not local, you can just tell me, hey, here, go pay your staff, and I will do so very gratefully. But that address is orders@thesojo.com, orders at thesojo.com, and of course that address is on the banner for the event. Join me again on Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday nights, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. If you have something you'd like to know more about, and it could be anything, it's broadcasting from my witchcraft room. It could be as simple as, hey, what you got in that drawer back there? And I'll show you. So, thanks for tuning in. Y'all stay safe, and namaste. Away at a safe distance. Blessed be everyone. Goodbye.